Okay, good morning, everybody. It is 8:30 and it's time to call the meeting of May 13th to order. Our first item is to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Moving on to citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items that are not on the agenda? Any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? Third and final call. We'll move on. Approval of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, we'll move on to our 8:35 item here, Information Service, Mark Sloan. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Looks like you have a couple of things here.
I do. First off, I would like to ask for your permission to replace our database administrator. Our database administrator had worked for us for 22 years, and she retired recently, and we are looking to fill a slot. We have two database administrators right now. We only have one, but we'd like to fill a second slot. These people are the folks that make sure that our data systems do what they're supposed to do as far as the data is backed up, it's performing, they do a lot of things I don't actually understand, which has to do with extracting data from those databases and turning into those kind of things. One of the big things we did when we looked at this position, now that it became open, was we revised the PDQ that came with it because it hadn't been done for many years and this technology has changed quite a bit. So we totally rewrote the PDQ to match with what we're doing in the current times and where we want to go. And we took that new PDQ, we sent it to HR, they restored it. We ended up with it being changed slightly on the grid. So now it ends up being on grid 17. And one of the other things we would like to do at this time when we fill a position is move it back to a full-time position. It had been a full-time position for many years, and then at the request of the employee, we reduced it to 0.8 about 3 or 4 years ago. But when we refill it, we'd like to go back to full-time. We're guessing right now, if all goes well, we'd fill the slot sometime like early July. If that happens with the new scale, we're talking about, it'll save us about $2,000 this year because we've got a gap of where we don't have anybody working. And next year, the budgetary impact is about $1,000. And that's primarily because our existing one that we had was at the end of her step, and the new one will go down at the beginning of the next grid. So
is it 1,000 more or 1,000 less?
1,000 more.
And that's because of the change in the
grid.
Did the grid go up or down?
It went up because we required more educational requirements when we redid the job, and as well as some other skills we were looking for.
John.
How are you getting by between now and July? That's a long gap. It seems like it's.
Yeah, and we have other staff covering for those duties.
Okay.
And so far we're doing okay, but what we're also doing is other stuff that we would be doing is not happening. You know, we're kind of just taking care of the day-to-day stuff instead of advancing along like we would if we had a staff slots filled with. So that, and we're also aware that at some point in time we may need to hire some additional help if something breaks or something in this next month or so. But so far we've been doing really well.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any motion and a second on the request. Any further discussion?
Yeah. Do we have plans as far as what more is going to be done with this new position?
Yes, yes. One of the big things when we redid the PDQ, we added a big piece that talks about application development. And application development is something we've never had the capability of doing in-house. Application development is stuff like developing little apps for our field data collection and those type of things. And there are things we do now, but we contract out for all of it. And instead, we'd like to bring some of those tasks inside, just because we've would have the capability to do that now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further?
Mr.
discussion?
Chair, can I
Sure.
butt in here?
Yeah.
Would you post internally?
I suppose.
And if so, would you want permission to backfill that position if you would select an internal candidate?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Thank you,
The board-
Janet. Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I would ask if the motion
I'll
maker is
amend my
willing
motion to cover that.
to cover the backfill.
Yep.
John, is that the same with your second? Okay, thank you. That's
Yes.
a good thing to bring up. Okay, so with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Okay, your next item.
Next, I came back to you about a year ago. I was here, and we were talking about aerial photography. Aerial photography is a type of data collection that we perform regularly because the problem we have with aerial photographs is they're obsolete the day we take them, because stuff happens. But we have different types of photography that we use. One of the things we've used over the years is something called the FSA photography, or it comes from the Farm Service Agency, and that's done every third year, and it's 3 to 5 years, depending what their funding stream is like. And it's free to us, except the issue with us is it's done at a relatively high resolution, which means you can't see a lot of detail on the ground, as well as it's always done during the summer months because they're looking for crop information, and the trees are in full bloom and everything. We do metropolitan photography. We do this jointly with all of through MetroCog with our cities. We do that every third year, and we'll be actually doing that here in the next week or so here in our metropolitan area, which includes all of our major cities in Clay County. Those are high-resolution photographs, and they're done so that we can get good imagery. And the one we came here last year was something called the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, along with MinGeo, worked with 17 counties, and they collected aerial photography, and we had us all partner with them, and we paid them $30,000 was our share. And what that did for us was, I'll show you. It gives us a much higher quality picture than we've ever had in Clay County. So this is the Farm Service Agency photographs that we get every few years from them, and they're free and they're nice and people like them and they're useful.
That's my house.
Yeah, and it is. That wasn't a
What was I
coincidence.
doing that day?
What are those chickens doing?
Yeah, but I'll show you here. This is the pictures we've got now.
Ah,
So the difference, let me back up. With the leaf-on stuff that we get from Farm Service Agency, if you look in these trees and stuff down here, you can see there's some sort of structures. But for our planning and zoning folks, they can't quite tell what they are. They just know there's something in those trees. Well, if in the new stuff that we purchased, you can easily see they're drain bins. So it gives us that quality of imagery that we've not had ever in the rural parts of our county. Especially, because they're color images, they're throughout the whole county. Now, one of the questions we got asked all the time is why didn't we use, pictures from places like Google and those kind of things? Well, probably the biggest reason is we're not licensed to use them. They're private, and the other thing is we don't have a lot of control over when they're taken or how they work. One of the things we do when we collect these types of pictures is we actually put control down, which you may have seen them occasionally. They're big white X's on roads and things. Mm-hmm. Our highway department helped us with this project. They put the X's out for us, and then we had them surveyed, and then that information, when they take the pictures, they actually go to those X's and they put the coordinates into the computer system, and they actually do something called rubber sheeting the image so that it fits exactly the world where it's supposed to be. And that's probably one of the bigger costs involved in producing a nice picture like this. And the reason we do that is so on here you can see the dark red lines, which are the property lines, so they actually line up where they're supposed to be. We want everything to line up like it should. I'm going to go over here to an urban area. We'll go through this again. I'll show you how. This is the Farm Service Agency pictures, and then in 2011, since this is in one of our cities, we take high-resolution photography. And those are nice pictures, and we use them a lot, but these were done in 2011. Well, in 2011, a lot can happen, and if you look at even stuff we took last year, 2013, there's a whole bunch of more houses showing up. And so we'll take metropolitan photos yet again this year. But the whole project that we did with MinGeo and the 17 other counties was really good way of leveraging our funds, because a big cost with aerial imagery is the spooling up all the resources, getting the aircraft here and all those kind of things it takes. There's a lot of those costs, and when you can spread it out over multiple agencies, it really helps us a lot. That's why we did that last year, and why the one this year we're doing with all the MetroCog partners. So those are the new pictures, and what I want to show you is we provide online mapping capabilities that is available to our citizens as well as our staff. But everybody in the county can have access to this information, and our new pictures are available there now too. And so they have their.
No, those were just taken.
These pictures were taken on May 11th, 2013.
Oh,
So they're right at a year old. We struggled with the date because we were trying to wait for the floodwaters to go down and the snow to melt and the trees not to leaf out. And we actually got to the point where we were having to daily go out in the front here and take a picture up through the tree to see what the leaf percentage was. And when it reached a certain percentage, we had to. Plus, we had to have a day with no clouds. So it makes a really tiny window to take pictures. So that's why in these pictures you can see in the tree line there's still some snow. And in some parts of the county, you can let me go back out to the extent. This is the online mapping thing that everybody might be able to see. Oh, come on. Up here you can see there's still high water in here. It's up by Georgetown. You can see when we took this picture last May 11th, it was still a little wet. But it's one of the hard things we struggle with in this part of the world is trying to take pictures with no leaves and no clouds and no floods and not much snow. It leaves us lately it seems like it leaves us a pretty tiny window.
I think that's one day in June somewhere.
Yeah, but the problem we have in June is the leaves are already out on the trees.
Yeah.
So we work hard to get these images available, and then we actually, it's a big process to get, once they're taken, to get them prepared for distribution and for use in our systems here. And that took quite a bit of effort, and it's a really nice tool. People find it useful. I think of all the data sets that we own, the aerial imagery is probably the single most popular. I mean, it is the one that people really appreciate. So that's why every now and then you'll hear from me they're telling you about how we're always striving to get the most accurate imagery we can for what we can do. And we make it available to everyone. We actually provide a service. We have the capability here of providing map services, which are tools that can be used to use our data that's here on our servers. People can actually access it and put it into their applications. We do that as part of our data sharing strategies, and our new aerial imagery is part of that. They can actually go there and connect to our imagery and put it in with whatever there is. So whether it's the folks at MetroCog or some of our other cities, like City Moorhead gets data from us, organizations like that.
Do we charge for this service, or is that a service available to county people?
It's a service available to, it's just a service we do. We don't charge for any of our data services.
Right.
Mostly because the data is being collected and designed for use by our staff and for our uses. So if we can get other people to have access to it and use it, we consider that a benefit to the, it's an extra win for how we can use it.
You'd be one township without a name on that map.
Oh, I see that. It will probably.
That's Holly. No, it's not Holly.
Highland Grove.
Highland Grove,
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
The system is trying to determine what to display where, and it looks for a space, and if it can't fit it will take it off. But this is the tool, the online mapping tool that is available to all of you. Anybody with internet access can get to this and get to this data. Is there any questions about how we do this? Or there's a lot of technology it takes, but it really looks nice, and our staff was so excited when these new 2013 images became available, because it gives us pictures in places.
Sometimes I wonder about our setback requirements when I see some of these.
Yeah.
How long did it take, you said, that was in May of 2013?
Yes.
When will that be updated then?
I don't know. We would hope to do it every 3 to 5 years,
Oh, I see.
but
Because that picture you had there, those lots are all full already.
right now in the metropolitan area, we do have a plan in place where we do it every 3rd year. So we can because we have in the GIS world, the rule's always been, just like most of all of our data, is 80% of our use really comprises 20% of our area. Because there's the cities is where things are happening. So that's why we have imagery done, and we actually have a plan for every 3rd year. We take that imagery, and we have a funding stream through MetroCog that helps with that. For the rural county, this was the first time that it ever had become available, and it was primarily through efforts from MinGeo. And our hope is that every 3 to 5 years they'll be able to come up with a program, something similar to do that. We'll see. A lot of that will depend on at the state level on how things are going. But in truth, since we're covering the metropolitan every 3rd year, in the rural areas, it's not, things don't happen that fast. I mean, it's nice to have pictures there, but here's a bunch of, I think this is Spring Prairie colony actually. I just randomly selected, but so it gives us the chance to actually be able to see these things at a level that we've never been able to see them before, because we've just never had the resources to collect imagery in the rural areas. But I thought you guys should see it since you helped pay for it.
Yeah.
It's a
Very good.
It's
Thank
a
you.
tool that people just really, our citizens just really get excited. Our staff too, but our citizens just really like this stuff.
I know a lot of them use it.
Yeah, it's really, really popular stuff.
Now, is it all available online for us at any time?
Any time of day, online, always.
Okay, now you had two different, you had the agricultural imagery and this, and both of them were online? I mean, both? Okay.
No, on the online mapping site, this is not it. I switched. On the interactive mapping site, we only, well, that's not true. We do provide some imagery, and you actually, if you go to the legend, you can go to, we've got 2009, 2011, and 2013 out there right now that you could look at if you wanted to.
Okay.
So we give different things available to them. We try not to get it too confusing, but we give them a few choices.
Very good, Mark. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have Shannon Thompson. And we're looking at a AmeriCorps volunteer, huh?
Gentlemen, yep. And Kirk had wanted me to just bring up a couple things, too, before we get to the AmeriCorps volunteer, about this spring. It's been busy in solid waste. With Cleanup Week in Moorhead, the Household Hazardous Waste building was hopping. We had 218 folks drop off over there. And we've been doing some additional electronics collections that have been going very well. Last year, during Moorhead Cleanup Week, we shipped about 86,000 pounds of electronics. And this year, so far, we've added a collection out in Barnesville. We had a Saturday collection in Moorhead, and we will have a Saturday collection this Saturday in Hawley. But this year, compared to the 86,000 pounds last year that we collected, we've collected about 102,000 pounds so far. So we're really working with the people, and people are loving that we're getting out into the county and making it more convenient for drop-off. He just wanted to make you aware of if you want to take one and pass them, please, of the business electronics and bulb collection that's coming up next week. We'll be out at the landfill and then in town. And then also throughout the year for residential electronics, residents have choices for that. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Also, we are planning to do household hazardous waste collections out in the county, which I'm sure will be well received also at the end of August, or excuse me, end of July and beginning of August. And the last thing that he did want me to report to you was he is working very hard on the PERM agreement, and he thinks he's making good headway, so he'll be
Yeah,
coming with that.
I think that's, we're looking at maybe that coming next week.
Yep, that's what he had said. He'll be in here with next week with it, so
Yeah, that'll be an exciting one.
get that wrapped up. Yep. But I am here about an AmeriCorps volunteer, and it would be a Green Corps volunteer opportunity for solid waste. The track that we're looking at getting someone in would be for promotion and education, working with large waste generators, and then working to revitalize our materials exchange at the landfill. It would be an 11-month position through the 2014-15 program year, and right now we're just applying for this volunteer. We haven't been selected as a site. We've just put in the application, but we would need the board to sign the resolution that if we were selected as a site, that we would follow through with the things in the agreement put forth.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we authorize the application of them for AmeriCorps volunteer for solid waste.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And then our investment in this then would be the
Our investment would just be the
site,
office space and
office
time.
space.
Yep. Yep. There's no monetary.
Okay. Very good. Any further questions, comments? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Very good.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Shannon. Mr. Berg. We're going to talk about filling the building maintenance supervisor position.
Yes. Morning, Mr. Chair and board members. What you have before you is a request that we've had a vacancy in our building supervisor, our building maintenance supervisor's position, and we have spent some time in reviewing the structure and looking at the supervision of it. If you remember, you made a little change a couple of years ago when Georgia took over the supervision of the custodial staff, and Robbie stayed with the supervision of the mechanical staff, and all that goes on with that. And there is a lot of work to that. So we have decided to suggest to leave it, the structure the way it is, and to fill the position. Things have been, I think, have improved with the supervision. We've certainly reduced the complaints on the cleanliness of the building and things along those lines, so I think things are working pretty good there. And we've looked at how we fill that position, and we're suggesting that we advertise both internally and externally at one time. And as is stated earlier, if that is filled by an internal candidate, then we would also include permission to then backfill the vacancy in the staff if it filled internally. We would advertise, like I said, certainly countywide to all of our employees and externally, and select the best candidate. This is a big position. This is a huge campus to keep track of. It's a lot of dollars that we go through in maintaining those buildings, and a person needs to know how to pay attention to bid and bid documents and getting quotes and tracking the dollars that go through this place. So it's an important function. And I know the question was asked earlier, how are you getting by with this? And well, that's why we were asking to fill it so soon, is because it's important to keep a pulse on this thing. And Georgia and the staff of the mechanical staff are certainly tracking complaints or issues that come up and servicing the mechanical side of it. So
Does this position require a boiler's license?
it does. And what we thought we would do with that is require, like we do with other things, we would give them a certain window of opportunity to get that boiler's license.
Do we have any with a boiler's license
We
on
do.
staff right now?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have two, I believe.
Okay,
that have
well, that's
boiler's
good.
licenses. Yeah.
Don't let them go.
No. And training is important, and we need to pick up our training pace on our people that work on these things too. So
Okay.
I'll move to approve the position
With the backfill?
with the backfill, yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members.
And, Mr. Overall, highway engineer. Good morning.
Good morning.
You have a few things for us today.
Yeah, we've got a bid opening at 9, but I've got...
Okay, we'll do some other things because it's not quite 9, so let's go to your recommendation to approve utility permit for gas transmission line from Holly to Barnesville. Let's do that one.
Okay, normally, several years ago, the board set the utility permit fee at $100, and that was based on, at that time when we initially set a fee, as they used to be no cost on them as of about 4 or 5 years ago, but there's a fair amount of staff time that goes into that, and went through the highway committee and the county board, and our estimate for a typical utility permit was like a 2-hour deal. You would have about an hour approving the permit, writing special provisions, making a preliminary trip out to the site, and an hour on the back end just to make sure that the construction was complete the way we wished. We recently went through some, with the wind tower project, we had a special road use agreement where that had a lot of construction inspection, and it was a lot more involved than just a smaller, like a single bore or a couple of power poles being installed. And we were recently approached by Greater Minnesota Gas Company. They're running 36 miles of buried gas line from north of Holly down to Barnesville, and it's going to go through several, it's entirely placed within county and township right-of-ways, so they're getting approval from the townships as we speak. They got Holly Township last Thursday, and what I would like to do is take a look at their permit and actually account for our staff time going through these 36 miles, making sure we got all our bases covered. We're looking at all the areas that may have potential issues, and we kind of took a look at, between a technician and Nathan and myself, probably estimated at about 100 hours of our time, which would be far and above a typical $100 fee. So I know our road use agreement was put together real similar, being they had 32 wind towers out there. I think the permit fee on that one was $10,000. Our estimate for this project would be about $5,000 based on that 100 hours of staff time.
So in the past, that's how we've determined these fees. is
That's
based
how
on-
we set the initial one with the $100. The road use agreement was put together real similar. We kind of copied that from another county's road use agreement. It went through exactly how they're going to make road, they actually made road improvements, added culverts, added approaches and things on the wind tower project. So it was a little bit different, but the same concept was the same, as it was based on hourly staff hours estimated to basically inspect and protect our right-of-ways.
Mr. Chair. Dave, you said that the wind tower thing was, there we charged about $10,000?
That was a $10,000 permit fee for
Okay.
that road use agreement, which, we could have done the individual utility permit for each mile or each section, but it seemed like it was a lot easier just to have an agreement that would cover the entire project from, all the areas that were affected or impacted.
I agree, yeah. Well, 5 seems like a reasonable number to me with
Is this typical, Dave, what other counties do like this when they're permitting something?
I know it would be on the wind tower portion of it, so I guess I'd have to say it probably is. And I talked with the gas company as well a little bit and explained to them that, it's going to be a lot more than just one trip out. We're actually going to probably inspect this thing a little bit as it happens. The initial construction is supposed to start the first part of June, so whether they gets going that fast or not, but it's going to take all summer long. It's supposed to get done by the end of August. So,
Jenny, have you had a chance to review this?
Yes,
Any comments?
Dave and I spoke about this, and we went through the set permit fee versus kind of this special request for this project, and legally it's something the board can choose to do. Dave explained to me how it was calculated, the initial fee was calculated based on hours and effort that it would take to grant and then fulfill that permit, and in the same way they've gone through the calculations for this project. So in my mind it's legally supported, and I believe the board can do this by the agenda item today.
Okay, thank you. Then, Dave, how about the as they go in, and if there was any damages done that we may not.
A lot of that's covered in this, in the utility permit language itself.
It is, okay.
Yeah, and then we have, like I said, we have special provisions along there, but unforeseen things, I believe, are covered. It's a 5-page document, our standard utility permit, so a lot of that.
So our language within the permit covers what they're responsible for should they damage them?
Correct, yeah.
All right, good, thank you.
Do we have, I don't know what type of inspection would be involved here, but we have people here that can do that?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we've got 5 technicians, and basically they're just out there burying power, burying this 8-inch gas main. A lot of it's being bored. All the entrances are required to be bored, all the roads and going underneath sloughs and things like that. And then the rest of it will be kind of plowed in with a dozer, kind of a plowing operation, which is pretty standard now. Their lines are put in.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would move that we approve the $5,000 charge for the utility permit.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, I think it is 9 o'clock now, and I see Nathan's here with all the bid tabulation sheets.
If you remember right, this is the bid tab for the roadway that we're turning over to the city of Hawley. We bid it last year towards the end of the season. The prices came in real high, so our best option was to try to rebid it in the springtime. It's a mill and overlay of about 3 blocks with a little bit of sidewalk work, so it's not a real big project, but it's something that when we turn the road back over, it'll have a fresh surface on it for the city of Hawley.
Right.
I think we've got 3 bidders, is that? We did advertise this project like we do with some of the other bigger projects. Our estimate is right at about $100,000 for this work. First bidder is Mark Sand and Gravel. Mark Sand and Gravel is out of Fergus Falls. They've got a 5% bid bond with their packet. Okay, yeah, there was no addendums need to be noted. Mark Sand and Gravel's bid is $112,540.60. $112,540.60. Our next bidder is Central Specialties from Alexandria. They've got their bid bond here in the amount of 5%. The bid for Central Specialties is $96,000, $96,051.85. $96,051.85. Last bidder is Northern Improvement from Fargo, North Dakota. They've got 5% bid bond here in their packet. Grand total bid for Northern Improvement is $152,338.00. $152,338.00.
Dave, this project, you said it was bid before and the bids all came in high. Have we changed the engineer's estimate, or does the engineer's estimate stay the same?
We changed it to reflect a combination of the previous estimate and what we would anticipate based on the bids that we got before.
So the 99 was upgraded from the previous estimate?
it was.
I think we kind of used our bid prices from the intersection project a little bit last year and didn't quite jive. This one, I believe, right, is a 60-40 split. 60% will be paid by the county, 40% paid by the city of Hawley. So it's kind of a joint venture as well. So our share then would be 60% of the, what seems like the apparent low bidder of Central Specialties at $96,051.85.
You want that approved today contingent upon?
Yeah, I think that, it seems to me like it's a fair bid. And maybe contingent also on the city of Hawley approving their 40% share.
Okay. All right.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? Second, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Okay, contingent upon those things, that would be awarded. All right, Dave, your approval to sell county equipment.
Yeah, I looked back in my notes a little further. I couldn't find it last week, but I did get approval in January to sell the striper and the 2 Nikon automatic levels, so I wouldn't need approval there. But we would like to get approval to sell our sign truck. When we got the new one, there was a few bugs that had to get worked out of the new one, as well as the timing we didn't feel was the optimum time to sell this piece of equipment. Now with the springtime, with the, we're kind of guessing it might be a farm service truck possibly for someone in the area, so we waited until the springtime when we thought it would be more appropriate to sell it. And, we would place all the equipment on that GovDeals website. What we have is our 2004 GMC sign truck. It's got an air compressor on it, it's got a crane on it, as well as utility boxes. So we feel it should fetch anywhere between, maybe on the very, very low end, 15 to 20,000, on the high end, maybe in the mid-20s. So, and when we got the approval for the new sign truck, we did have that salvage value kind of being put back in the internal service fund. So that's where we'd like to sell it, and then that money would go back and kind of finish out the rest of the numbers the way we had them planned.
So you're kind of counting on those numbers to help pay for the 2013?
Correct.
All right, very good.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Anything else, Dave?
I don't think so. Things are going good. It's wet out there. I know our guys have been getting a lot of calls this year from a lot of the local residents, some of the township residents, why we haven't really been out. So I sent out an email to all of our blade operators, and what I found out was, one, they actually have been out for about 6 weeks or so, but they haven't been out 10 hours a day doing their complete routes, because this time of year, you really, what you do is you touch up your bad spots, have a lot of traffic, have the washboards, and with the spring rains that we keep getting, you want to be sure you don't completely loosen up your entire roadway, because if you do, you're going to really have a mess there. So what they do is the areas that don't really need to be bladed up, they just touch the areas that do, I guess. So that's one thing that I found out. And we were going to start 2 weeks ago with our normal schedule, but we got that 4 inches of rain a couple weeks ago over the weekend, and then we got rain yesterday, and it's been kind of tough going. But another thing I heard from our guys is when we normally start blading, there's 2 things that are pretty evident. One, the farmers are out in the field full tilt, and that's not really happening. It's too wet. And the other thing is you want to get out and start pulling those shoulders in before the grass starts growing up, because as you do, you end up with a bunch of roots and grass, and that isn't really happening either. It's just been too cold. So I don't really think it's too late. I don't think we've missed any certain time. I guess the roads are they're always kind of tough this time of year. The frost comes out of the ground, and you got to be kind of careful. So I just being cognizant, I guess, with our guys and our scheduling, and I'm trying to do the best we can, and I'll keep taking input from the locals and doing the best we can.
Be good.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Thanks, Nathan. Okay, our next item is discussion and award of the Family Service Center Elevator Project. Brian Berg. Looks like we've got some more company, or... Are you Ryan?
I'm Ryan.
Okay. Good morning, Ryan.
I'm Brian Berg.
It's nice to see you, Brian. Are you off probation yet?
Oh, not sure. I never will be.
It's just been extended.
You have to behave yourself when you're off probation.
Well, good morning. Let's
good
talk
morning.
about this elevator again.
Yeah, last week we had in your packet an email from Ryan, who represents Michael Burns, architect, and they've been working with us. They designed the specs for the elevator over in the Family Service Center. And they were recommending by email that we accept the bid with the alternate, which was a $44,000 deduct for, it would change the motor of the hoist, but not the hoist itself, correct?
We would refurbish.
Refurbish the
The existing hoistway motor.
And we had some discussion on that. There were some questions of the board as if that's the right way to go, and then frankly, any other questions that we may have in regards to it. So your request was that, someone from the elevator company appear at the board here, and also Ryan to answer any questions, because you asked me a couple, and I said, those are technical questions I certainly can't answer. So today, Ryan is here with two representatives.
Right, with Chip Marker on the left and Dick Bruce on the right. They're both with Tyson Krupp Elevators.
And I might just excuse myself and let them sit up here.
Grab another chair for him. And, in the meantime, we had several discussions, and I think there was like a $50,000 difference between 40-some thousand going new versus with this refurb. And I'm not afraid to go with the refurb, but the question is how comfortable and confident are you that that's going to work?
Just talking with Chip a little bit, the existing motor was recently replaced in the 90s, probably 94 roughly. And with that motor, I guess they go through it and refurbish all the moving components and seals. I could probably let Chip touch.
Excuse me, it is the machine, not the motor. The motor would be replaced. The machine would be refurbished. My opinion is that it should last another 10 to 20 years, the machine that you have right now. It was put in 92 that we think. Mm-hmm. So, personally, I think you should, can I guarantee it's going to last 10 to 20 years? No, I can't guarantee it. Okay. But do I think it will? Yeah, the bearings seem good. It's carrying good oil in the ring gear. It seems good on the machine. So our recommendation is to keep the machine, refurbish it, replace the motor and the controls on this elevator.
I think one of our concerns was that it seemed like, you're talking about saving the work of a crane and going through the roof and possible roof damage and all that stuff. All that would cost more than $40,000, it seemed to us. It doesn't seem like a big enough drop in cost. How do you react to that, Hill?
Again, it'd be up to you guys if you want to replace it. We're not a problem replacing it. We're not a problem replacing it. When I was up there, it just seemed a pretty new machine to replace. Yeah. And that's all we're saying. It's just a newer machine. These machines, we do a lot of updates on elevators, so we keep the machines on a lot of elevators that we do update. Use that reason, use it last time. Especially this one here. It's 200 foot per minute. It's not a fast elevator. So, again, my opinion would be, it was my building, I'd keep the machine. Let's put it that way. Can't guarantee you this is going to last 20 years? No, I can't.
Well, what if it would go out, say, 2 years from now? What would it cost to replace that then? I was just thinking it would be more than 40,000.
It'd be pretty close to that.
Was that right? They're bringing in the crane?
The other thing that you have to keep in mind, under the terms of the maintenance agreement, within the specifications, all that would be covered under the terms of the maintenance agreement as well. And one of the things when we go in to do the modernization, we're going to go through that machine, look at the worm gear, look at all the seals, and recondition the brake, recondition everything that needs to be taken care of. But as far as the price, be pretty close to that deduct. I just want to touch on the service agreement too. From what I understand, Brian, now you have a full service agreement, because there's a partial and there's a full service agreement, and we'd want to make sure that the county had the full service agreement for that 5 years, and any time after that to maintain that, and then that the hoistway machine would be covered under that contract.
So if what I just heard is correct, whether we did the new machine now or based on Frank's questions, 2 to 5 years from now, the cost difference to install it then would not be that
It
different
would be
than that?
very similar, maybe 5% increase.
Inflation.
Okay. So, so from that standpoint,
And it sounds to me as if you're sure enough about it that you'll feel like it's like new. I mean, it's really, if you're going to pay, the service agreement will cover the cost of
Correct.
repairing it if it's.
Yeah.
And that machine, what I understand, is the same technology as the new machines, more or less?
There's not much, the technology is very similar. There's a lot of difference. The other thing too, our lead time on those Swish machines are 16 to 18 weeks. So that, just to point that out, I mean, this project will go into next year.
How long will it take without those changes?
We'd be done by January. So otherwise, we'll be looking, if we replace the machine, it'd be next year, probably around this time.
Oh, gosh.
that's one time. We already got people being stopped in these elevators. Well, Brian, what do you suggest?
Well, Mr. Chair, as I stated last time, we had 33 service calls on that elevator within the last about 16 months. That seems like an awful lot. We've had people stuck in it several times, and that seems like it's a safety concern.
It wasn't the machine, it was electrical issues more than anything else, right? Because my understanding is, we don't service this elevator, but what I'm hearing from the maintenance person that was there last, every hour starts shaking. I mean, so he said people were getting scared.
Right.
If it was a machine issue, it would be a constant, it would be intermittent like it's right now. I think it's an electrical problem that you're having there. It is our equipment that's up there right now.
Oh, it is.
And the stove equipment, and it could be, I mean, I think it's a controller issue. I'll be honest with you. I don't know, I've never done it, I can send my guys over there, we can go through it, but I think it's an electrical issue that you're having.
Mm-hmm. And my understanding, Mr. Chair, that all of that will be changed out for new digital equipment, and that's going to be probably the biggest improvement.
Correct.
And of course, we know computer panels, I mean, this is a pretty high bid, $300,000 to replace something that's already in place. I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but when you start talking about computer panels and digital, things cost a lot of money. So I don't think we have any choice in this matter, Mr. Chair. I think it's either now or keep limping along and replace it in a year or 2 or 3 anyway, and we'll scrape together the money. We'll be charging it to the Family Service Center account, and we do have a couple $100,000 right now in the capital service account. We're going to use some of that for the parking lot up at motor vehicle, but we'll work it out.
Do you feel comfortable with keeping the refurbished one there?
Oh, I do, yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I think they answered my concerns about that.
Yeah, I think in light of this, for the what they presented, I'd make a motion that we go with the contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Start as soon as you can.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So we'll get into committee reports, and just briefly before we get into that, I had a conversation with Brian regarding some of Commissioner Ingersoll's committees, seeing as how he's been gone for a while, and which ones might be neglecting a commissioner being at, and there's just a couple of them here, and that they were hoping that we could get somebody to replace. And one of them would be the adult mental health meeting on May 20th at 3 p.m. John, you've been involved with that. Would that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Would you take that, please? And then I think we will have a motion to extend the fees with the per diem, because I think it's not currently in there. So So, and then Grant, would you be available for the Moore Planning Commission meeting on June 3rd at 5 p.m.?
June 3rd.
It's got to be an in-town commissioner, and you're kind of the only one left.
So June 3rd, Thursday, June 3rd, what time is that at?
It's at 5 p.m. at City Hall.
What's it, Tuesday? Oh, it must be in July.
Oh, June.
June 3rd.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can do
so-
that. That's 5 p.m. on
Yeah,
planning.
so if you could take care of that one, that would be great. And you're gone on the 15th of May?
Yes.
Okay. The 15th of May, there's a Moorhead Library Board meeting at 5:30. Has anybody got time on that one?
When is that? June what?
That's May 15th.
May- oh,
Thursday.
that's-
Thursday.
Oh.
I don't.
And I guess I'm kind of out of luck on that day as well. So that one, we might just have to tell them we're not going to be able to fill that one. So I would entertain a motion to pay per diem for these two meetings that are outside of the normal.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Okay, so.
Okay, one question, do you know where that adult mental health meeting is?
Room 4,
Okay.
Okay.
How about the planning
That's
commission?
at City Hall.
City Hall on
Yeah,
first floor?
it just says City Hall on here, so.
Oh,
And maybe Vicki.
I know
can you
City
send
Hall.
that
I suppose it's in the
out to- Vicki will send
council
them.
room,
I
I
still
think.
remember my way around there.
Vicki will sell that, or send them something saying that she'll be coming. Thank you for doing that. Okay, committee reports. Grant, we'll start with you.
I just had a couple. We had the Recorder's Compliance Annual Meeting, and that's to deal with fees that are collected by the Recorder's Office and then can be applied to various things in other departments that are part of what the Recorder does. And so the Recorder expects those fees to be down this year compared to what they've been over the last several years. But I think we came up with some solutions to that, and I'm sure she'll be coming forward in the near future to present that to the board. And I had Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation annual meeting, and that was a good meeting. They had some excellent presenters, some business people from Fargo, some young people that are entrepreneurs, and Shara Thompson, who heads the United Way of Cask Play, and some of the things they've got going on. So it was, overall, I thought it was excellent. And John was there also. So that's it for me.
Okay, last week after the board meeting, we had highway tracking, and I think we've covered all the things today that we talked about at that one. Then the Veterans Office, we went to, also Commissioner's Day there, and it's always impressive. Tom does a great job of gathering folks together, and the office seems to run smoothly and to be really appreciated by veterans. So I think that's something to be commended. Thursday last week, there was a Lakes and Prairies homeless prevention meeting I attended, and with that, there's people from many different agencies that work with the homeless population, and always trying to find ways to alleviate and prevent homelessness. So it's an interesting group to meet with. As Grant said, I did attend the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Annual Meeting, and tell you, after that last speech, everybody was pretty keyed up. This young guy was he was really exciting to listen to, and it's I think that the future generations of Fargo-Moorhead are in good hands with that kind of enthusiasm and optimism about the future. And their goal is nothing less than to make Fargo-Moorhead the best city in the world. So, then there was a land management meeting in the afternoon for the diversion, and after juggling around and finding our place, it was a little crowded downtown with the marathon, so they had to move to the Cass County Courthouse, and once we got out of downtown, it went smoothly, but it was quite a challenge getting over there. The land management meeting, I think, went well. There was some report from Buffalo Red about the retention areas that they have identified, and Jerry Van Amberg presented that, and I think those were also discussed probably at the authority meeting afterwards. So it was a good meeting. Yesterday had a meeting again for the capital campaign thing for the Historical Society. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Frank?
No, Tuesday, I guess it was at that Veterans Day thing. Wednesday, we had interviews for the half-time position for 4-H. We'll continue them today. Maybe 2 more interviews today. Went to drug court, which was, again, interesting. Had a couple of meetings with FM-COG executive. We're discussing filling 2 positions and going over to CEO evaluations. So, Thursday, Soil and Water Conservation District. That's some interesting stuff coming up there with shoreline protection. You know, the environmental working group had an article in the Star Tribune. I see the Fargo Forum had an article in there Saturday. They're doing, it's getting a little bit tougher, I think. It's not tougher, they just want to see how much it's done. A lot of farmers are farming right up to the shoreline and stuff, so I thought, the thing that Mark presented here could probably give us a pretty good sight of some of these shorelines that are being infringed upon. And I know Ottawa County, I got a letter from Ottawa County, and they're just going ahead with a letter telling the farmers of all kinds of, the Soil and Water Conservation District has all kinds of programs, not all kinds, there's several programs that you could get involved in, these farmers could get involved in, to get paid for putting these buffer zones in there. And that's probably, I don't know whether Clay County should be going along and telling people about this too, sending out a letter, because I see Otterdale taking an incentive in doing that. Looks like it's going to be something that's going to be coming up where these environmental people are going to check in on us a little bit more. And it's probably, some of these farmers will probably be fined. Instead of being fined, they probably get paid for putting in a buffer zone. Yesterday I attended the Dilworth City Council meeting. They installed a new city administrator there, the new police chief. They discussed a school resource officer. I know we put one in last year at Hall and Ewan, but that was a county. There was a county one, and
it was a share.
It was a share one between county. I think Dilworth's looking at the Dilworth City Police and the school. The county wouldn't get involved in that one. Just a matter of information there. They also looked at putting up an ordinance on transient businesses. Say someone set up they said a hot dog sign, whatever, but I don't know if the county has anything on transit businesses or not. I mean, if someone just sets up a trailer somewhere and starts selling stuff, do we have a rule as far as how long they can be there? Can they just set up anywhere if they get permission to be on someone's land? Do we have any type of...
Yeah, I think we have ordinances about that.
We do have ordinance on that.
Talk to Tim about it.
Okay, very good on
There's ordinance, and then there's permit fees if they are even eligible to be in those areas.
Okay. They discussed Red River Dispatch, and I guess Chad, Mayor, pretty much, who was at the meeting at Linden that time, and he pretty much went along with what we're doing, I guess, and he said they would like to see a change, but he did say no one's really come up with a better formula there yet, Other companies, I got several complaints this week, and I don't know how we do with nuisance complaints, what we do, like the Baker elevator is one of them, I don't know if you ever got any of that one. That's county-owned building or structure, and they say there's sheeting falling off there, and I don't know if there's or not. It's leaning. Baker residents are concerned about that. I don't know whether we should be doing that. What do we do about a nuisance complaint, you know,
Well, we need to work with the auditor to find out at what point something can be done with it, and then we have to make sure it's safe. I noticed when I went by yesterday that it's boarded up much better than it has been in the past. But I noticed there was a door open, and you're worried about kids getting in there and getting hurt. But,
and then these people came to me. I was acquainted with the people. I mean, I know it's your area there, John, but they came because I'm personally acquainted with the people that.
Nobody's talked to me about it.
Okay, and there's other complaints. There was another complaint on the farms that they feel there's been a lot of junk being piled on and stuff like that. And at what point does it become a nuisance that we go in there? How bad does it have to get? Just because a neighbor complains about it, do we do something about it, or?
It's got to be a health hazard. It comes to that point. If it's a health hazard, then we can do something about it.
That's pretty much why I told him too. Okay, that's. I guess one more item ahead, and I don't know. Talking when we brought that sewer thing up a couple of weeks ago and stuff like that, should we be looking at building codes for the county? I know the county doesn't have building codes, and I know you guys did that almost 18 years ago, something like that. I found out in '96, I think you were trying to get building codes in or something. You guys are probably on the committee then.
Well,
did we want to do that, or should
I
we?
wasn't there 19 years ago.
It's been talked about since then.
Yeah.
It's
It's been since then, huh?
Yeah.
I'm saying '96, I think it was 2006, I think,
Yeah.
something like that. Excuse me, I said the wrong year. I don't know, should we have building codes for the county? Because
We can look at it again.
I don't know how to start that, or whether.
Planning Commission will start it, I think. Yeah.
Planning Commission. Tim?
Okay, that's it.
Okay, I had, last week, I had the public outreach meeting for the diversion project, and that one, we got reports on how they're coming with the right-of-way entries. Most of the stuff is dealing with right-of-entry issues in North Dakota, because that's where most of the activity is. A couple little minor right-of-way issues in southern Clay County. A lot of focus was on the in-town acquisitions, as that one major apartment area that's right by Main Avenue was the real topic of discussion publicly in Fargo, where there's 140-some residents that would ask to be moved. So the whole process about how that would be handled was discussed. And there's been several meetings lined up with those individuals. And because this is a part of a federal project, they would be eligible for federal benefits for having to be moved, and it could even compensate for rent and stuff like that going forward. Then we talked, got an update on our fmdiversion.com site that gives, and they had a article in there in the April one that said why retention alone is not enough, and it generated an awful lot of comments and input. So that they're going to do more articles like that in the future. Then on Thursday, I too stopped by the Veterans Day deal. That was very nice. The minute I got there, some of those old veterans are always happy to see us too, and they give you your little name tag, and it was pretty fun. And then following that, back to that on Tuesday we had the highway tracking meeting, and John, like I said, we acted on most of that stuff today. And then the Thursday was the actual Diversion Authority Board meeting, and there were several things that were done. We got our report from the Corps of Engineers. We did several amendments to work directives. There was the committee reports, and then, as John mentioned, Jerry Van Amberg gave a report of what the Buffalo Red is doing for potential water projects. And it brought me into the Basin Commission, which John's well aware of. We had the Diversion Authority had asked the Basin Commission to research into how different water projects might qualify for the $26 million that the Diversion Authority has set up for retention projects. And so they took quite some time, and they've got a different scaling mechanism to determine what project might supersede another one or qualify more, so than another one, to help reduce impacts to the main stem of the red. And I got a little bit vocal at our meeting on Thursday, and I told them that one of our top priorities should be that any project that reduces the impacts to the areas that we're creating the impacts to should have precedence over any other project. Because by far that, it's the area, I mean, it's no secret, the area where the staging area is being proposed, it's being created. That hardship is being created. And, and I think the opposition to the diversion, they've said all along that, with the proper retention, that maybe that staging area wouldn't need to be. Well, that's to be debated to me by the technical experts. But what I do know is if we can find and we can invest into retention areas that would reduce something from 8 feet to 6 feet to 4 feet to 2 feet, we're gaining ground. And so every foot you take off, you're also shrinking the size of that. So for example, the 1 or 2 feet impact that might be in the small portions of Richland and Wilkin County, those could easily go away with, once we get, so that's the whole point on it. They're not going to all happen at once. Everybody was clear. Jerry Van Amberg even said that the biggest hurdle on this is getting the landowners to agree to store the water on their property. So it's going to be but anyway, so there's a lot of discussion on that. And I think the comments that I made, even I saw in the forum, was even taken favorably by one of the people down south. So I just firmly believe that we can try to knock down that impact area by doing some of these projects. So that is the end of my report. Brian, you have some things for us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, the announcement came out that the AMC District 4 meeting will be June 6th down in Wheatland. So that's a little ways away. Wheaton. Wheaton. There we go. No land. Wheaton. You're right.
Still in North Dakota.
Yeah, there is a big one. North Dakota, isn't there? You're right. Attended highway tracking, that's already been discussed. The Commissioner's Day has already been discussed. The Compliance Recorder's Fund was discussed by Commissioner Wayland. Had a construction meeting, things, I reported on that last week too, and it's going along really well. Have another meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock out at the DMV. Attended drug court as well. And then Thursday, Friday, and I sent out a message on that. I wasn't able to go to the land management meeting or the diversion meeting. I was out of state attending my granddaughter's graduation from college, who now goes on to dentist school, so I was very, very proud of that. And just she's my oldest grandchild, and her name is Brianne. That's Brian with an N-E on the end. Not that it matters to you guys. And anyway, you've taken care of Wayne's communication and elevator and things, so that's all, Mr. Chair.
Any other family members?
Well, I do have a grandson that's named Brianberg, too, yeah.
Okay. If there's,
I now know that I will not be available for the June 6th AMC meeting, so
okay.
Hopefully others can go.
all right. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.